welcome to Lead Live, reminding you of your personal genius and how you think in order to actualize what you desire.
Happy New Year. I'm expecting 2020 to exceed at least my high expectations. And the degree to which we do that as a collective, we create that reality. Yes, I know that there are things that happen independent of us. That's the nature of life. And yet we get to influence life itself because we're integral to life. We are part of life. We are life's manifestations. And we get to choose, and I emphasize the word choose, how to live in this life in a way that actually adds value, not only to ourselves as individuals, our families, the communities in which we choose to reside, as well as to the greater society and life itself. So today I had the honor to be able to just discuss with you a topic that's dear to me, and that is success. And so, what is success? We look at a dictionary version of success, and what it tells us. It tells that it's the accomplishment of an aim or purpose, independent of whether the results that are achieved are good or bad outcomes. It's the accomplishment of an aim, it's an outcome. The outcome may be positive as perceived by the self who uh, created that particular goal to achieve. Success is the accomplishment of an aim or purpose, independent of even the shape, the context, the considerations. If one had an aim or purpose and they achieved it, success, right? Another way to define success that I find much more enlightening, not conclusive and complete, but much more enlightening. And it's found in The Stranger's Secret by Earl Nightingale. Hopefully, a number of you are familiar with that gentleman. He, like a number of men and women, historically have written texts that are just timeless. And he says success is really the progressive realization of a worthy goal. Let me restate that. Success is nothing more than the progressive realization of a worthy goal. It's not just the end itself, as we find in dictionaries, right? It's the actual process. One is successful when they do some things that I want to describe to you that is more than just the actual experience of that aim. The process itself renders one much more successful. And in fact, we tend to be extremely successful long before we get to the end, in meaning achieving that particular aim or that purpose for which we set on that journey. So again, Earl Nightingale says success is the progressive realization of a worthy goal or ideal that's much more expansive than just a specific goal. So today I want to talk with you about how do you experience success. So if people think, experience, well, you achieve it. Well, I'm suggesting it's much more than that. And so what does that mean? And when I finish this conversation today with you and answering questions that you may have, or even listening and sharing statements that you have, I hope you walk away with an understanding of how to experience success. So I want to begin by telling you, I believe there's basically, you can reduce the steps to one. You can say there are three, you can say there are five. I'm going to start off with what I believe is the one step. If that's all you do, that is part of the progressive, integral to the progressive realization of that worthy ideal. And what is that first thing? What is that most important thing? I call it imagination. It is an essential mental faculty that we have. The ability to imagine what we want. Everything that exists begin where? With an imagination. Begin with an imagination. I want you to sit and just reflect on that a moment. Whether you're watching this from your television set, hello, or checking this out through Facebook, YouTube, or any other means, your phone, through one or more of those sources, I want you to think about imagination. And we're going to come back to that. But what are the other of the 5 steps? I would say the second is to feel whatever you imagine. Don't just let it be a picture in your mind where you are doing some fantasy dreaming, some big picture imagining. Feel it. Critical. Come back to that in a second. And what I mean by feel it, I want you to feel emotionally committed to whatever you're imagining. Don't let it be something that someone gave to you and you're like, that's interesting, or actually that's fascinating, but you're not emotionally connected to it. Get emotionally connected to it. And if you're not, then it's not the right imagining for you. Third, take action, whatever that means, that allows you to operationalize, to render practical those imaginings or that major imagination that you have created, that you feel. Take action consistent with those things. And engage in habits or behaviors that allows you to actualize, to realize, to manifest. Fourth, welcome the results. And so what do I mean by that? I mean, respect the process. Pay special gratitude frequently throughout a day, at least in the morning and the evening, for the journey, for the experience you are having, whether they are magical, ideal, or even challenging and concerning, and quite frankly, distressful. They're going to get you to that imagined state where you've embraced it, you're emotionally committed to it. Stick with it, move. And so what's step number 5? Continuously redo steps 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, I could have changed these words and used more proper words, more professional words. But at the end of the day, we're talking about leveraging one of your highest mental faculties, and that's your imagination. And then we're saying align that with your emotional state. Be committed to whatever that is that you're imagining. And I'm saying take action, whatever that means. Make concrete those imaginings in terms of a goal or goals. Not too many, 3 at best, preferably 1. And then plan out as much detail as you can. And then move, take the further action to actualize, to ultimately get to a place where you can do the dictionary version of success. But why did I say imagination in and of itself is part of the success, experiencing success? There are some remarkable folks I've met on the planet who have brilliant, profound imaginations. You're like, my God, slow down. That's, that wow. And some of those folks we've all experienced through their movies, through their books, through their dancing, through their artistry in other ways, creative arts, fine arts, through their remarkable, profound presentations in various mediums, whether it is online or whether it's via television or some other medium. We have witnessed profound imaginations. We've witnessed it in structures that are so beautiful and creative. We've witnessed this in terms of using the landscape, the water, the grounds to to cultivate and create where everyone gets to experience that creation, whatever that is, above ground or below ground. We've witnessed powerful imaginations, or imaginings, I should say. And each one of us has the capacity to imagine. And I strongly recommend that you don't imagine at the margins. You just go all out, go for it. Think about the possibilities. As a dear friend reminded me and others in his LinkedIn communication recently, I think it was yesterday, Dan Cohen, hello, beautiful spirit, who's in Israel. A dear loved one, I am certain that we are connected more than just knowing each other in this lifetime. He reminded us of this thing called flow. And flow, I think, it emerges when you have the highest level of imagining. You are actually imagining whatever it is, imagining creating something, whether it is a medical instrument or whether it is a toy for a child, or it is literally a book that someone's going to read and be encouraged to use their imagination. Whatever that imagining is, go there. Imagine the whole process from ideation to creation to use to further transformative use in whatever form. Imagine it. And then begin to feel, because the imagining is so explicit that you're feeling people's experience with that new device, with that toy, with that book. You are witnessing how much their spirit is edified. You're witnessing how it's solving a problem for them. You're witnessing how it's giving them so much joy. That's what I'm talking about in terms of emotional commitment. Go there and go there deeply so that when you come out of that dreamlike state, which to me is much more profound than the so-called awakened state, you actually can see how you can go from where you're at without knowing all the details of how to get to the end. You may not even have the technology or the expertise to do it all, but you've imagined it. So you've opened up the universe to allow for the right people to come to you and say, I got this expertise and I don't know what to do with it. Well, what do you say to that person? What's your expertise? Well, I write well. And, I've helped a lot of people as a ghostwriter. And you're thinking, oh my God, I've got a great idea. I need a ghostwriter. And the universe is handing you that opportunity. So as opposed to saying, well, I don't know anyone who may need it, stop, pay attention, listen. The universe is saying, here's what you need to get there. So when you imagine big, when you imagine in a fantasy way, you don't know the results fully. So don't be wedded to the result, because the results may be much more profound than you can imagine. You don't even know how to get to the results. You've got an active and remarkable imagination because you've allowed yourself to go there frequently, daily. And forget about the noise that you may have heard when you were a child, or if you're still a child, tune down out that noise when people say you spend too much time in your head. Leverage that. Understand they don't understand what you're doing. That's okay. Bless them and keep moving. Go back to that space in your head, in your heart, in your body, throughout every cell of your body and outside of your body. Be that creative source that we are wired to be. Imagine. And when you hear messages, people come to you with different resources. Ask yourself first, how does that help support me get to the end that I imagined? Imagination is powerful because you're communicating to the universe, I'm ready for this. And the universe doesn't care what you're imagining, doesn't care if it's good or bad or indifferent. Automatically rewires everything vibrationally, energetically. And before you know it, it's in front of you. And you're like, oh my God, how did this happen? Think about it. You think about somebody and you have feelings about this person and they call you. You're like, I was just thinking about you. It's the way the universe works. It's much more succinct and concrete. We know this through quantum physics. We know this through all kinds of so-called new science. We're catching up with the reality. We're not nearly there, but we're catching up. And one key way to get there quickly is through imagination. I read a lot. These are just a small sample of my books. I read not so much because I need to know what I don't know. It's because I want to know what I don't know in order to imagine even bigger, more profound ways. And what I found, I have discovered through reading, through paying attention to other people sharing, independent of whether I like what I'm reading or hear from other people sharing, is that I'm discovering internal validation. More powerfully than that, I'm discovering aspects of self that I didn't even know about. That's the power that you have. So imagine however you can and leverage the various resources, online and otherwise, that allows you to imagine even in more profound ways. Okay, I'm going to take us to a deeper level. I want to acknowledge some of the comments that are being made. Thank you, Olive. Be committed to your goals. Yes, and yes, that's what I learned from my grandparents. Powerful. Tomoko, I love this book called The Magic of Big Thinking. Yes, we can create a vision that drives us. I would transform that a little bit. I would say we drive the vision because the vision may change as we are driven to pursue it. The vision is powerful, only as powerful as we make it. And it's an iterative process. So it's not fixed. As we learn more, we experience more, we can do more, and the vision become more profound. And what does Raleigh say? Happy New Year, Elnora. The same to you, Raleigh, and so many countless others across this globe who care to make a difference, and hopefully in a healthy and remarkable way, in support of not just other people, really getting that physical, mental, spiritual, energetic self, emotional self, ready to launch a more profound year. So I told you what I think are ways to experience success. There are many ways. This is just one set of simple, elegant steps. Okay? And let me just refresh that really quickly. Imagine, feel what you imagine, be committed emotionally to what you imagine that works for you. Take action, engage in behaviors that are consistent towards that imagining, and then welcome results, respect and pay gratitude, be grateful for all the experiences, even those that are, let's say, a little bit distasteful. If they are part of the journey of you experiencing your greatness, your greater imagining, whether we call it a big picture vision, but you may not even be able to organize it into a vision. It's so big. Let it be big. And then continuously engage in those steps. What are your key abilities? I want to talk about 7 very briefly. And they're among your many abilities. So you've got the mental tools, among those, your imagination. You some things we take for granted is what I want us to focus on. We take for granted that we can make decisions. In fact, we're making decisions all day long. Even when we're doing it at the unconscious level, we're making decisions. We are powerful. We make decisions all day long. Think about it. And as I think about it, I think about the compound effect. That's another text by Darren Hardy. And he talks about his lived experiences and how one little thing led to another little thing. And before you know it, this effect was magnificent. And by the age, he wasn't even 30. I don't think he was 22 when he became a millionaire. He just engaged in particular behaviors and he just didn't think about it a lot. He just did what he thought was going to lead to particular results. And some things he did, he had no clue would lead to particular results. And he was doing a lot of things. And ultimately, that compound effect led to what? Those compounding effects of decisions literally led to what? Not only what he had imagined, but more that he could not even imagine. Decisions, we're making them all day long. And the folks who were highly successful, as each one of us may perceive, what's the difference between them and one who's not as highly successful as he or she wants? Is how they use their time in this 24/7 period. Making decisions. What decisions? Choice. We have a lot of choices and we get to choose among those choices. I separate decision from choice so that you understand there are multiple decisions we make and there are multiple options that we can make for each one of those decisions. We're choosing. Even if we do it blindly, it's still choice. Even if we say someone, the society has strongly encouraged the systems, we're still choosing. We're still making particular decisions. Mindset, how we think, the way we think, what we think about, our values as it relates to this heart-mind connection, emotional commitment to that mindset. Powerful. We'll come back to that. Focus. I say focus is aligned with faith. I focus where my faith lies. If I don't have faith in something, I don't focus there. And so some people say, well, I focus here. I don't have faith in it, but I focus. Well, are you sure you don't have faith in that? You focus there because you've been told to focus there? You focus there because everyone else focuses there and you're afraid to do otherwise? You have faith in that. There's some faith assigned with that. I want you to think about that. Focus. Emotional commitment. I've emphasized and I can't emphasize enough, and I'll explain why in a second. Action. Taking action. I've mentioned that. And importantly, in terms of all of that, responsibility. So what did I say? Decision, choice, or choices, mindset, focus, action, responsibility. I don't know if I left out emotional commitment. The power is in the consistency of it all. And I'm reminded of another book that I've read called The Power of Consistency by Weldon Long. An interesting gentleman, and I strongly recommend that if you haven't read his book, it's a quick read, maybe an hour or two, or maybe a half a day, but over a course of a week, just 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there, you'll be done. The power of consistency really highlights what I just said in terms of faith, emotional commitment, action, and responsibility. He turns fear on its head. FEAR, he says F is focus, which I call faith also. E is emotional commitment, A is action, and R is responsibility. And people say, well, fear is real. Yes, it is. And there's a reason why we get to experience fear. It's out of protecting, self-preservation, or preserving those we care about and things we care about. So I want you to, give me a moment. I think I'm quite intense here. My body just went to a different space when I said all that. And there's a reason why. I want you to remember the power of those words: focus, emotional commitment, action, and responsibility. And the power of consistency in using those key sets of our abilities. What are our superpowers? I'd like to remind you, they include thoughts and emotions. And why do you say thoughts and emotions? What leads us to where we're at that's critical to our mindset? Our thoughts and our emotions. What we know from real research, a lot of research, And thanks to the Heart Mind or the Heart Math Institute, I think it is. I think it's located here in Northern California. They've done researchers from around the planet have and continue to investigate the power of not just the mind as we think in terms of the brain, but the mind is in every cell of the body and it extends beyond the body, and also the heart. And what we find is that there's more activity, electrical activity, energetic activity going from the heart to the brain than there is the reverse, which suggests the heart is influencing the mind in much more profound ways. What we've known for hundreds of years, and as we get to understand more the ancestral knowledge we've known for thousands of years, there's literally an aspect of us that drives our behavior on a daily basis, and it has nothing to do with the conscious mind. We call it, for the sake of clarity and accessibility, we call it the emotional mind. And I call it the heart-mind connection. So if we understand that 95 to almost 100% of our activities daily, we're not deciding. We think we are. We're not deciding consciously, I should say. We are emotionally doing what we're wired to do. And in order to change the script, we need to change what's happening at the cognitive level, using our imagination, using our will, using our power of perception, using our intuition. Those are using our reasoning power. All these are part of the mental faculties to shift, to change, and through a habitual engagement on a daily basis, we get to shift the nature of our unconscious mind so we have a completely new set of actions and new set of results. So I say to folks, here's the deal. If what you're experiencing right now works for you and you're experiencing the successes you want, stick with it. It's working. Whatever it is that's working for you. And it doesn't matter. It's independent of your level of education. I'm one who values formal education. And that's why I was in 2 PhD programs at the University of California at Berkeley. I was so honored to be with these remarkable faculty members and students and community, et cetera. But it didn't give me the confidence or the real know-how, the street knowledge that allowed me to parlay those critical uh, uh, core competencies I developed there and knowledge. And yet they were important. So I'm saying to you, whether you have that experience of being in a terminal degree, whether it's an MD or a JD or a PhD or a baccalaureate degree or an associate's degree or a certificate, any kind of formal education, or you've not, you have the power to do this and exceed even what I'm talking about in terms of experiencing successes throughout your life. In fact, the fact that you're still here indicates to me that you've already been successful. The question is, are you allowing yourself to experience the success? That's what's important. What is success? Again, you define it. It's either experiencing the end, or as I like to refer, it is the progressive realization of that worthy ideal. Remember what I shared earlier? So, thoughts and emotions. I'm going to share something that one of my mentors shared in the ABCs of Success, Bob Proctor. He writes, first comes thought, then organization of that thought into ideals and plans, then transformation of those plans into what we call reality. Thus, we're creating reality, literally, every single moment in time. The beginning, as you will observe, is in your imagination. You don't need me to say it, him to say it, or anyone else to write it. We feel that. We are experiencing that when we pay attention to who we are and what we're experiencing. We become what we think about. Earl Nightingale in The Strangest Secret. You read that little very thin book, and the essence of it over and over and over again is a reminder that who we are is really more a reflection of what we are thinking. what we are emotionally committed to, even if it's at the unconscious level. And for most of us, it is unconscious. We don't know that because we are successful, that we have in fact decided to be successful. At some level, we did, consciously and unconsciously. At some level, we decided that we can only be X, whatever X is. And you can answer that X for yourself. I don't need to fill in the blank. Look at yourself, whether you're looking in the mirror or you're just in reflection. Look at what you're experiencing right now, where you're at, what you're doing, with whom you're doing it, etc. You, at some level, have decided on that result. Yes, there are systemic realities that ensures some people are more likely to be successful than others. Been there, done that. Understand, as someone who's been humbled, I had humble beginnings, born to a 13-year-old, raised in foster care, homeless for a short period of time, went to college because I didn't want to be homeless again, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Ultimately, end up working in higher education for nearly 40 years, working in the UC system, the CSU system, Stanford University, community college system, rising from the ranks of student affairs to faculty affairs to human resources to a college president. I get what success looked like. But success was not when I became I was successful in those roles. Yes, that's one way to define success. Success was literally as that little 7-year-old being physically beaten and told I would be nothing like my mother and I wouldn't live to the age of 20, was in my mind saying, interesting. This adult doesn't even want to know me. I could have said, oh, that's who I am and own it. I didn't choose to. I can't tell you why, except that at some emotional level, I didn't want that for me. And luckily, I didn't. And here's the powerful thing: whether you're that 7-year-old as I was, or whether you are a 65-year-old who bought the script and want to shift from that old paradigm to a new, you get to do it. Because again, what? You have the decision-making power. You can choose, and you've got these other faculties that are within your purview to do it. Yes, it does take focus. Yes, it does take emotional commitment. Yes, it does take action. Yes, it does take being responsible. You get to do it. Believe, succeed. You've heard that before in one form or another, in one language or another. You've heard you invest, you return. I don't care if you've heard it in the Bible, in the Quran, in the Torah, in the Bhagavad Gita. I mean, I don't care what text it is. I don't care what philosophical, whether you're a Buddhist or you've experienced this notion of you sow, you sow, you sow, you cultivate, to cultivate, and you, guess what? You reap. There's a harvest at the end. The harvest assumes that you're consistent, power of consistency. The harvest assumes that you're cultivating the soil so that it's healthy. That's you. That's the you with whom you've engaged in, the environment, the others, the things. It assumes some fundamentals that allows for a solid foundation so that you can reap the benefits. Again, success is a progressive realization of a worthy ideal. How do you get there? I want to go back to something that I feel all the time, and I always love to share with loved ones. And that is destiny is within the self, it's not outside. As I think about my many nieces and nephews and godchildren, as I think about my brothers and sisters, as I think about my, oh goodness, cousins, as I think about people I don't even know who are family members, as I think about my loved ones among the many friends and colleagues, as I think about people I've yet to meet who I value, you, many of you, I think about our destinies. They're not outside of ourselves, they're inside. They're inside this magical temple. They're inside of this energetic force that we are. Destiny is in the self. It's not external. We get to live it externally, yet it is internal. Again, the power of thought. Effect of thought on circumstances. Think about this. Effect of thought on health and the body. Thought on purpose. The thought fact in achievement. Thought and the facts. Thought and the results. The results reflect the progressive realization of that worthy ideal. Thoughts, where does everything begin? In imagination. Where does that go? I'm thinking about a man as a man thinketh. Really written many, many, many years ago. When we didn't say men and women, we just said man, and we did it generically to reflect all humans, all people. And James Allen, that little book, another little book, quick read, probably in 20, 30 minutes, reminds us the power of thought. And I already talked about this compounding effect. And I remember reading early on when I read Hardy's book. He writes the principle of reaping huge rewards from a series of small, smart choices. What's most interesting about this process, as he conveys, is that even though the results are massive, the steps in the moment don't feel significant. And that's the thing about, and thank you, Elizabeth, for reminding us about the power is inconsistency. You're so right. Here's the deal. When you're engaged in that particular individual transaction, that act, it's like nobody knows what's going on. I'm just doing it. And there's another act. I'm just doing it. And you go to sleep, and hopefully with a great deal of gratitude and respecting of the process, and you close your eyes, you're imagining, and you go into a dream state, and you constantly going back to that beautiful, powerful imagining. You are experiencing the success. Every day you do that. Think about that. But before you know it, that one day, that 1 week, that month, that year becomes 3 years, and all of a sudden you've gone from an ideal to a result. And people are like, oh my God, you're remarkable. How'd you do that? That's great. I want to do that. And you know what they want to do? They want to know how you did it and do it in a day, do it in a week, do it in a month. They want the results yesterday. Why? Because we have, in this instantaneous world of being able to access each other, send each other emails and get it right away, we want it right away. We don't understand that life itself is like that seed we plant in the proper soil and that we cultivate with nourishment. It, like us, requires water, requires the right kind of nutrients in order to grow. And so as you engage in those micro steps, what you're doing is you're building the foundation. You're adding the nutrients. And before you know it, you're not thinking it's 3 years later. You're just like, okay, I got to do this. I got to do this. And before you know it, it's happening. People are showing up. Your product is selling. It's selling at a greater rate. You're learning from the feedback, or the product is not selling. And so you're making course correction, and then you're putting it back on the market. And before you know it, you're where you imagine. But you don't think it's a big deal because you've been imagining every single day. You go back to that. So you're experiencing every day. So when it manifests for everybody else out there, it's a surprise to other people who said, we don't think you should do that. You should keep this job and get the benefits and don't worry about all that other stuff. They're trying to protect you. They really mean well. Just like those elders who told me as a kid, you're not going to amount to much. They were trying to tell me, well, based upon what we think happened to your mother, they didn't know she was harmed. What we think happened to her, same thing's going to happen to you, and you're not going to be around here long. It never took the time to get to know you and understand your passion. But here's the deal. They don't have to. It's not about them. Remember, the destiny lies within the self. You are responsible for that. That commitment must come from you. That emotional commitment must come from who? You. So I just want to remind you of imagination, feeling, action, and welcoming results. And what do I mean by that? Respecting all the results, demonstrating your gratitude for them, learning from them, and moving forward. So, obviously, I strongly recommend developing a mindset, establish one that works for you. No one knows best but you, literally. And you don't know best until you get to spend time with self. Quiet down the noise, go within. And even if it's uncomfortable, especially if it's uncomfortable, go within, go deeper and deeper. And allow yourself to imagine that essence of genius really is within, always has been. Opt to dream big time. Fantasize what works for you. Set goals to enable you to make real your dream, a goal worthy of you. Again, emphasis on a goal that's worthy of you, not a goal that you're worthy of. Just get the script right. Create a plan, a stepwise approach to actualizing what you have created in your mind. You've already created it because each one of us is a creator. Take those actions highlighted earlier. What were those actions that I mentioned? Imagine what you want, feel it, emotionally commitment to what you want, take action, engage in those actions consistently, new habits, get to new results, welcome results, respect and be grateful, and continuously redo those previous steps. Now, I have just gone on and on. I can go on and on because I'm passionate about these substance, these details of what has enabled so many folks, including myself, in being successful. They're really simple and they're really not very magical. We as individual make them magical. So questions, Jet, can you share a question? My next year's resolution is to be a success. How do I make this happen? Well, I hope that what I've shared so far really gives you some tools. But let me address what you say in terms of how do I make this happen? Okay. Remember, the key step to success is what's happening in your imagining. Okay. I'm purposely doing this because I don't want you to get stuck in the head. But I go here first because we tend to think the brain contains all the stuff. No, it's in every cell of our body. Once we have that thought and we are emotionally committed to it, it literally vibrates throughout our body and extends beyond that and leads to powerful results. So imagine, you make it happen by imagining clearly, consistently. Don't waver. The only thing that you may change is the nature of that imagination. As you gain new insights, new information, new understandings, especially of self, you want to expand it. You want to enhance it. You want it to be yours. Next question, Jet. And I'm so proud of you for having being resolved. And that's what I think in terms of New Year's resolutions, being resolved. And many resolutions are not kept because people are not resolved. And how do you get resolved is you do what I recommend. At least there may be another set of recommendations. You find the ones that work best for you. Who am I to dream big? Oh, wow. That reminds me of, what's her name? Marianne Williamson. She wrote this poem that was attributed to Nelson Mandela because he shared it during, I think, his inauguration. And it's about the nature of self and reminding people that so many of us play small. We defer to others. We just kind of hide ourselves. And I was one of those folks. I just wanted to be invisible. I wanted to help everybody, but I didn't want people to know who I was because I was not relevant. What I did to help people was relevant. You know the story. A number of you do. But literally, by playing small, as Marianne Williamson reminded us, all we've done is encourage other people to do the same. But when we honor our greatness, whatever that is, and every one of us has at the essence of who we are greatness, everyone without exception, emphasis added. When we honor it, we encourage, remind, and reinforce the importance of others to do this, to do the same. So, who are you to dream big? You are a profound human being with capacity that exceeds what you can probably currently imagine, unless you're someone who has spent a lot of time on self. And if you have, you wouldn't be answering this question. You are worthy of a big dream. And the degree to which you give that gift to yourself, you set your life on a path to literally unimaginable successes. And remember, success is not just the end. I mean, when I've achieved something, it's like, okay, I've got to reset. What do I do next? What do I do next? What do I do next? And so I've achieved a lot in my life. And I experienced the successes long before I got there. And so when I got there, it wasn't a surprise. It was a surprise to a lot of people. Like, you earned a PhD? I know where you came from. You came from the streets and da 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 da. How did that happen? Well, it happened by incremental steps and unwavering steps. And there was pain in the process because I didn't read well. I didn't write well. I loved math and I didn't understand why. I didn't read and write well because I didn't want to feel. And when I learned that, I cut through the nonsense and developed the competencies to read and write well. I didn't want to feel. And so math was a very comfortable space to be in. It was either you got things right or wrong. There was no emotional connection you had to have with math unless you were going big. But it was easy to go big with math. It was hard to do. So figure out why you may be stuck. You deserve to be big, to dream big. Yes. Next question, Jet. It has been difficult, a difficult struggle for me to figure out what success means. Please help. I hope this conversation, I hope you've heard all the conversation. I firmly believe success, first of all, you define it for yourself. I think I need to remind you of that. So if success is being a remarkable dad to your children, or to have children and to be a remarkable dad to those children, and ensure that they develop as very responsible, mature adults worthy of their own level of self-respect because they've created this, then that is an exceptional, worthy goal, worthy ideal. And the work that you do in achieving that is what I call the success. Doesn't mean it's all going to be successful. Doesn't mean it's going to all be learning. Hopefully, there will be some learning from the children to ensure that you're even more effective. So, most people who look at this show are in business. They're either executives or they're leading a business or they want to be an entrepreneur. And whether it's they're in a small village or they're in a bustling city or they're in a community where there are too few businesses, you get to define that success. And the degree to which you're clear, I want you to always go back to those initial imaginings. Imagine big. So you think the best you can do is build a $50 million business. Well, for a lot of people, that's extraordinary because you want to hire people. You want people to be employed. You want people to use their own creativity to build and transform your business in a way that you can't even imagine. That's a worthy ideal. Yet don't be so wedded to that 50 million because before you know it, you've brought in enough people with the creativity, the technical expertise, etc., to make it $1 billion business or to make it multiple businesses or to do something different. So, yes, dream. Recognize the degree to which you dream can be expansive. And it really is more expansive when you leverage others. So I hope you, as you think about the struggles that you've had, you think about those struggles in terms of, did I make it through those struggles? Well, you're still here. That in and of itself is a success. Wow. And as you define what your subsequent success or successes will be clear that the journey, the progressive realization towards that worthy ideal is to be respected and honored. So be in gratitude, recognize it. When you do that, pay attention to it. You may take out a blank sheet of paper, write down what you've accomplished. I don't care how so called minor you think it may be, write them down. And I guarantee you, even if you're just 20 years old, you will find that you have filled a page. And don't try to do it in one sitting. Write down the 3 items that come to mind, go back to it hours later, go back to it a week later, go back to it a month later. Allow yourself 6 months to write down all the things. You will have a nice little book. So just don't be so hard on self. Recognize that those challenges, I believe that challenges equip you, if you use those challenges, to actually greater achievements in life. Key thing is leveraging them. Next question. By our outward indications, my wife and I are both successful. Kudos to you for acknowledging that. She seems to feel it, but I do not. I feel something is missing. Any suggestions? She seems to feel it. And my assumption is that she's shared it, she's demonstrated it, and you feel like something is missing. Any suggestions? My most important suggestion is to ask yourself, what does success mean to you? What do you want to experience that would be an evidence of success? And whether you think in success in terms of you've achieved something or you've considered success as the progressive realization, so the journey itself to getting there that ultimately gets to that result. What is success to you? When you decide on that, and then you are emotionally committed to it. So I want you to look back at your history and ask the question, was I emotionally committed to anything that other people consider to be success now? Well, hopefully you are emotionally committed to your wife and that and your marriage, and people are perceiving that as a success. And so that's one. I want you to do that, and you maybe take a blank sheet of paper and write down those things too. I want you to get emotionally connected. And let me say that it's not unusual for us, especially, I'm not certain where you're at on the planet, and you may be in different places, meaning that this question may be applied to a lot of people. But if you're in the United States, it's not unusual because our overall societal culture strongly criticizes being emotional, even though we know scientifically through the research that the majority of what we do all day long is driven by the emotional mind. So interesting. Oh, you're just being too emotional. Well, of course, that's reality. The key thing is honoring your emotions. And so you may be that individual who have chosen to separate internally. You're still one person. You still have an emotional set of faculties. The question is, are you honoring them so that you can literally attach the emotions to your historical successes? More importantly, be clear about what is successful or what does success mean for you? There's a lot to disentangle in that regards, but I hope that's helpful. Clarify what success means to you. Ask yourself, are you emotionally connected to those things that you consider to be successful? Then take the time to go back in time. You don't have to spend a lot of time on that. And identify where you are emotionally connected to an outcome that you actually experience. And I want you to allow those emotions to come up. Do it in private so that there's enough safety there that you need. And then as you feel comfortable, share it with loved one, your wife especially. It's someone you believe that confidence is going to be maintained and honored. Yeah. Elizabeth Wright, love these questions. I do too, Elizabeth. Next question, Jet. I'm fearful. And I think this is the way, in the way of my success. What should I do to get rid of the fear? Whew. I remember years ago, I can't think of the name of the preacher, the reverend. She was in Santa Barbara. She used to use fear as false expectations appearing real. I remember hearing that a lot. And yet, let's be clear, there are a lot of reasons to be fearful based upon real realities. And yet, the emphasis, the operative word is expectation. So there's we have the ability to be fearful for key reasons, as I indicated earlier. The key thing is deciding what, being at least aware of why one is fearful. It's good that you know that you're fearful, why you're fearful, and how you can step out even with that fear. I know a lot of folks, including myself, was fearful of a certain thing, whatever it was. I wouldn't be admitted to this PhD program, or um, I wouldn't be acceptable in a particular role, or my nose is too big, my cheekbones are too high, my lips are too big, and so therefore, because I'm clearly Black, Latina, Native American, some with other kinds of background aspects of my culture and ethnicity, that I wouldn't be honored. I had to work through those things as a young kid, as a teenager, as a young adult. And we all have fears. And those fears are real. And the degree to we hold on to them, they become more solid and fixed. And we have a foundation of fear and we walk in that fear, or we limp in that fear. Question is, how do we get ourselves out of it? And the power, of course, is first acknowledging it. Second is walking through that, what we call the terror barrier. And the terror barrier is what? It is a literal, real set of conditions that's led to fear. And how do we get through that fear? One key thing is knowledge. Another key thing that's a primary thing is thought. If you believe you can get through the fear, it doesn't matter whether you feel it. If you begin to believe and you use those mental tools to change the feelings, the emotional mind, and you use those mental tools by engaging in new habits, whatever they are, whether it's self-talk and or a script that you read on a daily basis and or action that you take on a daily basis, at least for 60 days before they set in as your routine habits. Because who are we if not habits? We are the sum total of our habits as humans, right? And so, how we influence those is through our thinking. Change the script, change the feeling, change the behavior, change the results. Change the script, change the thinking. So, with knowledge of what to do and the commitment to doing it emotionally, even with fear, all of a sudden we burst through that terror barrier. And before we know it, was like, what? Is that all that it was? Or you may be still in fear. Oh my God, someone's going to catch me. I got through this. And then another barrier gets up. And what do? You use the new knowledge of how to move through it. You move through it again. You do that enough before you know it. You don't even remember you don't remember the feeling of fear because you burst through those barriers. Okay? So be less concerned about the fear. Honor the fact that you do have fear. Honor the details of whatever that fear led to that fear. But get new knowledge of what to do and be emotionally committed to taking the steps to walk through it. Fear in and of itself doesn't hold us back. It's the lack of taking action. And why do we not take action? Because we either have insufficient information, and we certainly are not emotionally committed to doing it. And what did I say about the other aspect of fear? Focus or faith, emotional commitment, action, and responsibility, taking responsibility. Next question. And let me just say, Be less concerned about getting rid of fear. What we focus on, we draw to us. What we focus on, we draw to us. What we focus on, we draw to us. I'm emphasizing that. So if you emphasize fear, guess what? You get more evidence to remain fearful. Focus on what you want. Focus on what you want to experience. 2021 has to be a great year. Yeah. My family and friends are wonderful. 2020 was so painful with deaths, loss of jobs, having to rely so much more on one another. Success we all need. I echo that. I, like a number of individuals, had loved ones die last year. 4, 2 in December, and almost lost my dog in December. What do you call that? A nervous laughter? And a dear loved one, one of my family members, her mother just died. I got notice of it yesterday. Life is real, and we get to make it personal. And that's why I want you to imagine in big ways. Decide what it is that you want, that you can be emotionally committed to. Be unwavering in taking those actions and never relent in terms of being responsible for the results. Take advantage of the failures to learn to enhance, because without those failures, you really have no major remarkable growth. We don't know what we don't know. So when we take a step out on with that focus and with that faith, we're going to do some things that are not so-called perfect. Don't seek perfection. Seek learning. Seek achievement, even incremental. Yes. Loss of jobs, create a job. Find a need, decide what tools you have to fill that need, and go about filling that need. We'll have further conversations about that this year. Decide what it is that you want to contribute. Never be beholden to something or someone else. Figure out, leverage others. Even if you don't meet those others, leverage them through text, through online resources, through coaches. Figure it out, take action, move. And as you take action, you'll get new information, new knowledge to take greater action. And as you take actions you've never taken before, there will be fear. So you don't want to get rid of fear. Fear is, leverage it. Move, 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 move. Before you know it, the success that you imagine every day, you are, because you are in the moment that you've accepted that emotionally. Relying on one another. Let me tell you, there's no bigger gift we can give ourselves. Yes, I know a lot of us are introverts. I'm one. And I sometimes I have difficulty talking to groups of people. Some people who know me well would say that is not possible. But I just do it because it's not about me. It's about the bigger picture. And in that regards, it really is about me. I want to make a significant impact in a positive, altruistic, responsible, productive, rewarding way. I can't do that by hiding away. I could if I leverage other people. So when you leverage other people, other resources, guess what? That compound effect, before we know it, the success we need's there. So this individual, you are so right. This pandemic caused us to rely more on one another. And for those of you who don't have another with whom you can rely, create that slowly, systematically. Create it. We all deserve to be able to leverage one another. Each one of us is important, independent, and because of our circumstances. Any other questions, Jet? Does success require courage? Whether you have what you may consider to be zero courage or uh, a plate overflowing with courage is less important to me. What's important to me is that you dream big for you. The courage will just come. Dream big for you. And when you dream big in a healthy, responsible way, it will edify all of us. Your family, the community, if you live, if you have family, if you don't, the greater society. Dream big in a healthy, responsible way. Courage automatically is there. When you commit, that's courageous. Be less concerned about terms of courage or whatever. I'm a leader, whatever. Be more concerned about being the essence of who you are, going deep, going deeper, and leveraging in order to actualize what you have imagined, that major fantasy goal. Next question. Yes, I want to experience success. What does this mean really? I hope that as you've heard what has been shared over the hour, actually it's hour and 7 minutes, my goodness, you get it. What success means, you define it. There are different ways to define success. And I love the idea that it is a progressive realization of a worthy ideal. You define the ideal. Ideal circumstances, ideal contributions, ideal context. You define that. Any other questions? Okay, so Jet has shared. That was the last question. And I want to thank you, Jet. I want to honor you, Raleigh, Roy, for being instrumental in Lead Live. For those of you who may not know, Jet is in the Philippines. So it is very early morning. And weekly, he makes certain he's here for this show. And so I want to appreciate your leadership, Jet. You mean a lot to not only those of us who watch this who really don't know you, but get to experience what you do. You mean a lot to me as well. And I'm proud of you. I have no doubt that your trajectory is going to exceed your current high expectations. And so, with that, I want to prepare us for next week's broadcast. We are going to have Andrew Lysek, a old colleague from Stanford University, who has been instrumental in Georgia. He moved there from California, where he had assets remarkable, and took them to Georgia and is making a beautiful difference there. We'll talk about the power of philanthropy. He was one of the key individuals who helped to build the foundation that now is considered just normal at Stanford University in terms of just the use of public and private partnerships to advance research, advance preparation of professionals into remarkable fields, and much more he'll talk about. So I look forward to seeing you next week. And most importantly, I hope today was not only inspiring, yet practical, and gave you some tools that you'll use to exceed your own high expectations. Much success, and remember that you are already a success. Wado.